Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took exception.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. My name is Keith Parish. The Grizzlies head into the All-Star break with a victory over the Utah Jazz, a game that started off excellently. At one point, the Grizzlies doubled the Jazz up, but then the Jazz fought back, and things got a little panicky as the lead shrunk down to one, but Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. come through at the end, and the Grizzlies defeat the Utah Jazz. And the big story of this one is the monstrous performance from Jaren Jackson Jr., a unique and spectacular stat line from Jaren. 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, 4 blocks. He also made 4 three-pointers. He tantalized us, got pretty close to the first ever 5 steal, 5 block, 5 made three-pointer game. This is only the second time anyone has hit those specific tiers in a basketball game of 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, 4 blocks, and 4 made threes. James Harden did it in February of 2019. Harden, fun fact, also did it against the Utah Jazz. Jaren picked up 3 steals, 3 blocks, and 3 threes in the first quarter, which is just nuts. Don't even have the words to describe it. His first half stat line was like, no one's ever done this in Grizzlies franchise history. He's the first player on record, according to StatHead's play-by-play stats. The play-by-play stats only go back to 96-97. But in the past, 26 seasons, he's the only player on record to have a half, recording 4 steals, 4 made threes, and 3 blocks. This is Jaren's first career 3 steal, 3 block, 3 made three-pointer game. Sean Marion has the most in NBA history with 11. Jaren was unbelievably good. A great performance to kind of erase the subpar game against the Celtics, where he recorded no blocks, where he fouled out on national TV. Unfortunately, this one was on League Pass. Only the local markets and the NBA diehards probably saw it. But a awesome game from Jaren. He now has 7 straight games with at least 15 points. He's averaged nearly 21 points in that stretch. He has 6 games this season now with at least 4 blocks, 2 steals, and 2 made threes. The rest of the NBA combined only has 3 such games. Jaren, when things were breaking down, by the way, in the kind of gross fourth quarter, which, we can acknowledge, bad fourth quarter. The Grizzlies did not finish this game well. The offense was putrid in the second half, specifically the fourth quarter. But when things broke down, Jaren was grinding out points, getting to the foul line. Do I wish the Grizzlies could have beaten a Jazz team that was playing Damian Jones and Simone Fontecchio and Juan Toscano-Anderson without Jaren grinding for free throws? Yeah, absolutely, of course. But at the very least, it was great to see him do it. It was a huge performance from him getting this much-needed win for the Grizzlies as they head into the All-Star break. And Jaren and Ja go off to Salt Lake City to be the first Grizzlies teammates to ever play in the same All-Star game. Beyond Jaren, beyond the historic, I'm calling it historic performance from Jaren, there were some other notable things about this game, specifically for the hardcore Grits and Grinds listeners. We have to acknowledge the starting lineup of choice for this one. They started Brandon Clarke. I don't know what the formula is for when Brandon gets to start alongside Jaren and, of course, Dylan and Desmond and Ja. So for the every episode listeners, you now know this was the second time all season that Ja, Dylan, Desmond, Jaren, and Brandon Clarke played together in the first half. The other time was the other game they started against the Golden State Warriors, the game that ended with the Klay Thompson three-pointer off a technically illegal Draymond Green screen. So they start my preferred starting lineup. Tillman moves to the bench. They get off to this huge start. They make 7 three-pointers in the first quarter. Have a 38-point first quarter. They get off to this huge start. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. That's what I've been talking about. What's funny is in the second half, this specific 5-man lineup, which, as you know, has an incredible net rating all time, they basically took it right on the chin. They could not make any field goal attempts in the second half. They were outscored by the Jazz by 9 when those 5 guys played on the court together in the second half. Part of all Grizzlies lineups, they just kind of struggled offensively in the second half. After the Grizzlies made those 7 first-quarter three-pointers, they then hit 3 more three-pointers at the start of the second quarter. They had 10 made three-pointers when Konchar hits his second one with 7.5 minutes left in the first half. By the way, Konchar, very importantly, of course, snapped his streak of failing to make 2 or more field goals. It was the first time he made 2 field goals in the last 15 games. So Konchar makes this three-pointer with 7.5 minutes to go in the second quarter. From the rest of the game on, from that point on, the Grizzlies only made 4 of 23 three-pointers. They were up 53-30 when Konchar made that three-pointer with 7.5 minutes left in the second quarter. The rest of the game, they were outscored 81-64. By the way, speaking of John Konchar, don't look now, but in the last 2 games, he's 3 out of 4 from 3. And on such low volume, now we can spin the stats to say misleading things like in John Konchar's last 5 games, he's shooting 55% from 3, which is true. He's 5 for 9. Aren't stats fun? But Konchar, great job, buddy. Made a couple of threes. And the Grizzlies, again, first half, great. Made all the three-pointers. Second half, the Jazz started making three-pointers, and the Grizzlies kind of, stumbled their way into the All-Star break, held on for dear life. Fun stuff about the starting lineup. Yeah, they got outscored badly in the second half, but still, we can update the all-time tally. I mean, yes, it's a little bit dumb to update the net rating for one specific lineup after every single game, but what are we doing here if not doing that? Updating the all-time possession counter for my favorite lineup, Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clarke, and Jaren Jackson Jr. They've now played 195 possessions together all time, a plus 26.7 net rating, a overall 99 defensive rating, which in modern basketball is super elite. Also notable about this game, it's basically a footnote in history because of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s spectacular stat line. Brandon Clarke's stat line, also awesome. He finished with 10 rebounds, 5 on the offensive glass. We knew he could do that. He gets 8 points, also 3 assists, 3 blocks, and 3 steals. Now, the NBA, the Secaucus stat keepers, apparently took a steal away from Brandon. For most of the night, he had 4 steals. I wake up on Thursday morning, he only has 3 steals in this game. I'm doing stat head searches, and I'm confused by what they are turning up. But Brandon Clarke's stat line, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. The only players in Grizzlies franchise history to do that, Zach Randolph, Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol, of course, the holy trinity of frontcourt players. Steven Adams has done it twice. Kyle Anderson did it. Sharif Abdur-Rahim did it back in Vancouver. Now Brandon Clarke has done it. Brandon and Jaren in this game, a combined 8 steals, 7 blocks. They are the first pair of Grizzlies teammates to post 3 steals and 3 blocks in the same game, to each have 3 steals and 3 blocks in the same game. No Grizzlies teammates have ever done that before. Brandon Clarke in the starting lineup. Why did he get to start this game? What was it about this matchup where they're like, let's do Brandon Clarke? I don't know. Was it me railing about them failing to play their best 5-man unit together against the Celtics? Maybe they were going to get there, but foul trouble of Jaren kept them from ever playing their best 5 guys together. The magic fix to that is start the players together when no one has any fouls. You guarantee they'll play together. I don't know. For a while, we're like, maybe they play Xavier Tillman when there's a bigger center. Well, Walker Kessler is huge. He started for the Jazz. Maybe they play Xavier when it's a high-usage player, an offensive player. Maybe that could explain it because Kessler is a low-usage player. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't think this was asked again in the postgame. I don't think we've gotten any answers, or no one's asked Taylor specifically what is the deciding factor in whether Brandon Clarke or Xavier Tillman starts. Not that Taylor would give a straightforward answer or give us any illumination on the topic, but I am certainly curious why they've swapped around these starting lineups, and with Steven Adams on the sideline, why Brandon Clarke hasn't started more games. Brandon Clarke, as the starter with those spectacular steal and block numbers and also picking up 3 assists, only made half of his field goal attempts, which is frankly a bad game for Brandon Clarke. This hurts, of course, his season-long field goal percentage. Brandon Clarke is on pace right now to annihilate the franchise record for field goal percentage in a season. Of course, it's his own record from his rookie year. He would have broken it last year, but he didn't average enough or attempt enough field goals to qualify. But he does right now. He is currently 5 percentage points better than he was his rookie season. He's shooting 66.4% from the field. Now, Brandon and Jaren were absolutely spectacular. Ja Morant, he put up some good counting stats, but I also think whatever Casamigos jokes or start of the All-Star break early jokes you want to make are fair and warranted. He struggled at times in this game, but the good side of it, if we want to paint the good stats, he had 20 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and 2 steals. This was Ja's 8th consecutive game having at least 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists, which is the second longest streak in the NBA this season. LeBron James has 10 straight or had 10 straight such games earlier in the year. There's, of course, nothing like this previously in Grizzlies franchise history. For players aged 23 or younger in NBA history, this 8-game streak is tied for the 7th longest streak ever. Luka Doncic and Oscar Robertson are the only players aged 23 or younger to have longer streaks of scoring at least 20 points, getting at least 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. The longest streak ever is 19 straight games by Oscar Robertson. Now, less for the filtered by age and arbitrary cutoff stats, the bad parts of this game for Ja Morant. He was 8 for 26 on field goals, only 3 out of 8 from the foul line. Gross. A pretty rough game offensively for Ja Morant. Desmond Bane in this one, again, not many headlines because of everything that Jaren Jackson Jr. did. Just a ho-hum 24-point, 6-rebound, 4-assist outing for Desmond Bane. The man is cruising along. I know since he came back from the sore toe and whatever the knee soreness, whatever's going on with his legs, he hasn't really had like a huge, oh, wow game. Hasn't had a monster like 30-point explosion. Yeah, he went 6 out of 7 from 3 against the Cavaliers, but the Grizzlies weren't really close in that game. And thus, you don't really remember it as like, oh, wow, Desmond Bane was incredible this game. But despite not having a single, maybe huge performance, despite thinking he's not totally back, well, if he's not totally back, this will do until back gets here. In his last 15 games, Desmond Bane averaging 21.6 points per game, 4.9 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game. His shooting splits, 51, 47, 93. So absolutely spectacular numbers from Desmond Bane over his past 15 games. Yeah, I still think overall it does feel like the Grizzlies need this break. Yeah, Jaren, all-time great game for him. Brandon Clarke, starting lineup insertion. Brandon Clarke's been playing very, very well recently. Ja Morant kind of struggled. Desmond Bane was okay. He was good. We now hold him to a higher standard. It's just a pretty good Desmond Bane game. But overall as a team, the Grizzlies still not clicking. you're playing a shorthanded Jazz team at home. You need to take care of business. They were 11.5-point favorites. They barely hang on. They almost let it slip away. Of course, there's a lot of outside factors with All-Star break looming. There's sometimes really odd results or sometimes a lot of blowouts right before the All-Star break. In previous seasons, the Grizzlies have lost their games heading into the All-Star break. But so I guess we can just be happy they pulled out this win. One of the reasons I'm not super excited, there's still some good stuff to talk about, but like Tyus Jones went scoreless off the bench. He's now gone scoreless in 3 of his last 9 games. In Tyus Jones's last 10 games, he's 3 out of 21 on three-pointers. This was his 6th consecutive game without making a three-pointer. That's his longest streak since the 2020-2021 season. In his last 10 games, 3 for 21 from 3, that's 14%, averaging 4.8 points per game. That per 36 scoring, just 8.3 points per game. So he's languishing, part of a bench unit that kind of still is struggling, is still not a strength of this team. Of course, Luke Kennard, we hope, would be a boost for the second unit, and he was in this game. A really good Luke Kennard game. Made 2 3-pointers, made all 3 of his free throw attempts. That is how you endear yourself in your first home game. His first made 3-pointer, it was a pull-up 3 in transition where it was a 2-for-1 opportunity. Most NBA teams, definitely the Grizzlies, give the green light to go ahead and launch basically any okay 3-point look if there's about 30 seconds left in a quarter. And Luke did that on a 1-on-3 fast break. Pump fake, decided he had a good enough look, let it fly. The reason that's okay, if you don't know, the thought process behind the 2-for-1 is basically any 3-point attempt plus another possession is worth more points than waiting for a high percentage shot. That's the math, roughly. Any old 3-point attempt, as long as you have an okay look at it, like a 30% chance you're going to make it, you add that to one more possession, it's better than waiting for a good shot. So you didn't have to tell Luke Kennard twice, hey, buddy, you can shoot it. And so he makes that one. His second made 3-pointer of the game was a sight for sore eyes for Grizzlies fans. A corner 3 in transition. Luke Kennard, beyond being just a really great 3-point shooter, is an extra great. He's a super elite corner 3-point shooter. That's what he was acquired for. That, and of course, his salary for next season. Let's continue breaking down this game. Talk about Dillon Brooks still struggling a little bit, and we'll do that right after this short break. All Grizz all the time. Stay connected and follow at MemGrizz and at Grind City Media across all social channels, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for breaking news, one-of-a-kind content, and all the perspectives you won't find anywhere else. All right, some more stats for this game against the Jazz. Something very notable is the Grizzlies tied their franchise record with only having 4 turnovers. They outscored the Jazz on points off of turnovers 40-3. That there is how you win a basketball game. The 7 made threes in the first quarter were the second most made threes in a quarter this season. Some bad numbers, a reason this game was not as comfortable as it felt like it was going to be in the first half when you got up by 24. The Jazz feasted on the offensive glass. This is a familiar refrain. The Jazz recovered just about 40% of their missed field goal attempts in this game. In 6 of the Grizzlies' last 11 games, their opponent has an offensive rebound rate of 33.3% or better, which is really terrible for the Grizzlies' defensive rebounding. League average is about 26%, giving up 26% offensive rebound rate. So 1 out of basically every 4 shots gets offensive rebounded. The Grizzlies are giving up a third of opponent missed shots as offensive rebounds in a bunch of these games. Of course, obviously, that's the problem with no Steven Adams. That's the drawback to Jaren and Brandon starting in the front court. But even then, If you don't have Jaren and Brandon starting in the front court, it gets maybe even worse. Tillman, not an elite defensive rebounder, pretty good on the offensive glass. Santi and Brandon played together. They're not good. Statistically, they haven't been good at getting rebounds. And it's also exacerbated by some of the lineup combinations they've been using. A lot of times, Santi and Brandon have been playing with Tyus and Desmond, and those are not very good rebounding lineups. There even was a brief moment in this game where Luke Kennard was the fifth among those guys. So it was Tyus and Kennard and Bane with Santi and Brandon, and I basically watched those few possessions with my hands over my eyes, peeking through them. Seems like a rough rebounding group there. But beyond Santi and Brandon playing together, Santi, by the way, has become such a solid three-point shooter. His stroke looks so good. He made both of his threes in this one. Nice bounce back from that 2 for 9 from deep game against the Celtics. But Santi got to play more minutes again with Jaren Jackson Jr. One of the awesome cascading results of starting Jaren and Brandon is when you start that big rotation, it leads to having Santi play minutes with Jaren. And so sometimes not only do we not get enough of the great lineup, the 5-man lineup I adore, but then we also are not getting the Santi and Jaren combination minutes, and they've been outrageously good this season. We're only at 121 possessions, but they're plus 31.6 net rating, according to Cleaning the Glass. So starting with Brandon and Jaren and then also getting Santi and Jaren minutes together, love to see it. As far as the numbers for Brandon and Santi, they are still negative as a 2-man net rating this season. Again, the rebounding seems to be some of the issue. And honestly, those Bane, Kennard, Tyus minutes, they look so small. Despite really liking what I saw from Luke Kennard this game, I liked how he probed with the dribble. I don't know if you're like me, where you kind of rolled your eyes when you heard Zach Kleiman talk about we're going to unleash, the ball handler, the creator, Luke Kennard, that he did in Detroit. I'm like, all right, I want him to spot up and shoot threes. But he did, in fact, probe a little bit and had, I thought, some nice dribble attacks. And so I thought, again, very, very good game from Kennard. Will we see Kennard and Bane playing alongside Ja in the future? We still haven't really unleashed that one. The other starter, Dillon Brooks. Okay. You guys know I'm a pretty big fan of Dillon Brooks. Compared to most people, I'm extremely high on Dillon Brooks. But, of course, we can't hide the fact that Dillon Brooks has had a bad season shooting the basketball. It's maybe even a mild understatement. His long slump has basically become, the whole season. Sure, you can still break it up into halves if you want to, and it looks less bad. Up until Christmas Day, Dillon was averaging 17.9 points per game, which honestly, we don't care about the points per game. We care about the efficiency. But still, he was shooting 41.3% from the field, making 34.8% of his three-pointers. That's up until Christmas Day. Since Christmas Day, which again, just an arbitrarily chosen stat cutoff where the stats start looking real ugly. Since then, he's 35.5% from the field, 25% from three. He's only averaging 11 points per game. Some of that is he's missing his shots. Some of that is the team is getting healthy, and he's correctly taking fewer and fewer shots. In this game, he missed a bunch of shots, like he does. I don't think he played poorly necessarily. He didn't seem like he was forcing the shots. I thought he forced more shots in the Celtics game, but he just missed the shots. And now for the season, I was looking at his shot chart on NBA.com, and it's just, he's below average everywhere. From every single zone on the court, he's below average. And we know he's been bricking at an incredible rate this season. But the most staggering stat for me, if you isolate his shooting, is on long twos this year. And we already know long twos are bad. We've had that hammered home. The analytics community has told us long twos bad. On long twos this season, Dillon is 27%. On the shots he probably shouldn't be taking, he's only making 27% of them. Last season on long twos, he made 43% of them. This season we're down to 27. So just some gross numbers. Also, in his career from 3 to 9 feet, basically never makes 40% of them. I don't know if all those shots are where he gets stuck. He gets stuck in between getting towards the basket or getting to his preferred 15-foot jumper. Terrible shooting numbers. So his shooting numbers continue just to be so poor. Of course, his defensive effort is much needed. His ability to get the ball on the rim is still an attribute, okay? The Grizzlies are still a good offensive rebounding team. Missing 7 shots, it's not the worst thing in the world. You hope you rebound 2 of them. And that's how the offense works. Because, frankly, the Grizzlies' offense isn't any better than that. Pushback, would it be better if someone better than Dillon Brooks was playing? Well, it's an obvious question. Don't have to answer it. Dillon is still a better option than anyone that the Grizzlies have. 5 out of 12, honestly, is a good game for Dillon. We've now hit the point that, hey, you made 40% of your field goal attempts. I'll take it. I'll take it desperately. But hopefully the All-Star break will just relax, cleanse whatever Dillon's got going on. He'll come back and he'll be back to more of those career averages and not these worst all-time in his entire career numbers. Dillon needs this break to reset for his offensive game, just like Tyus Jones, who's in a pretty huge slump. We need that. The All-Star break is going to be a fun one for Grizzlies fans. Friday night, you have the Rising Stars game. Kenneth Lofton Jr. going to be there wearing his Memphis Hustle jersey. No Grizzlies are involved in NBA All-Star Saturday night, which is fine for me at least. And then, of course, the All-Star game, Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., first time the Grizzlies ever have 2 All-Stars in the game. Going to be very, very exciting and awesome. I don't know how you feel. I want them to be on the same team. If they're on different teams, it really drives the point home to me that this is totally meaningless. I know it's an exhibition and it's a showcase, but I still like pulling for someone. If Ja and Jaren are playing against each other, what am I even cheering for? I guess just the highlight plays, Jaren not to do a, committed offensive foul. Could Jaren please not foul out of the All-Star game? I guess that's my one hope. Anyways, thank you guys for listening to these episodes. If you're in the Nashville area, don't miss it. The first game after the All-Star break is against the Philadelphia 76ers a week from today on February 23rd. I'll be hosting a watch party at Noble's Beer Hall. That's an early tip, a national TNT game at 6:30 p.m. Central. So if you're in the Middle Tennessee area, come out to Noble's Beer Hall. Hang out with me. I'll be giving out some Grizzlies prizes. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Appreciate everyone who's already done that. All right, hope you're having a great Thursday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.